Zippe. Our committee includes Chair Allison Zippe, Mike Bello, Andrew Maloney, and myself. Many UU congregations across the country, especially those with an endowment, have a formalized estate planning or legacy giving program through which parish members may make a commitment to provide a future gift to the church. And now we're initiating just such a program here. Informational material is now available in these legacy giving brochures that you can find either in the narthex or the Stebbin parlor. And there's also online information on the website. In addition, there's going to be a Zoom informational session on Wednesday, June 21st at 7 p.m. with an estate planning attorney. Please register in advance using the Sign Up Genius in the weekly link. The UUA recommends, as part of the outreach about legacy giving, that congregation members give testimonials about the importance of legacy giving. This is where the faith reflection by me and Russ come in. I'll begin and then Russ will continue. I volunteered to do this because several years ago, Russ inspired me to add First Parish to the beneficiaries in my will. So we're hoping together to inspire all of you. So my faith reflection. I grew up unchurched in the South, my parents being suspicious of organized religion and what they had seen of charlatans and bigotry. But they allowed me to attend any religious services I wanted, and so I went with lots of friends to lots of different churches, the earliest being various forms of Baptist church. There were no UU churches in the area. When I was 12, the minister at the church I was attending suggested he come to speak with my parents about my joining the church and being baptized. I was too shy and taken aback to say no, so that afternoon he arrived. Forewarned by me that this was not my idea, my parents had placed lawn chairs under our carport, and when he got there, he wasn't invited into the house. He was not offered tea, lemonade, cookies. This was not a Southern welcome. As he started to speak, my parents politely interrupted and told him that they didn't believe children should be encouraged to join something they couldn't fully understand, but that I had a good mind, and when I was an adult, I could join whatever religion I wanted. But I wouldn't be joining his church. Yeah. My parents were pretty amazing people. Anyway, he left in a huff. I, by that time, had melted into a puddle of humiliation and relief, and I've been forever grateful to my parents for protecting me, but also for them really expressing their confidence that I would find my own way. So while I never went back to that church, I kept searching for a spiritual home. In college, I was very active in a Presbyterian campus ministry. In medical school, I attended a Methodist young adult group. Then I moved to New York for my residency, and I sang in an Episcopal choir. All along, I was struggling with the creeds, the dogma, the Trinity, Jesus, God, all my personal beliefs still in flux. Then I moved to Boston for a fellowship, and surrounded by UUs, instead of going to church, I started psychoanalytic training, a different form of spiritual exploration. It was helpful too. Then I met the charming, brilliant Charlie Seymour, and when we decided to get married, he was working at Carney Hospital and had rented a house just behind this church. So we were looking for a minister to officiate at what would be an outdoor wedding, and we made an appointment with the First Parish minister, Pat Green. So the first time I came to this church, I came through the back door to the minister's office. I never saw the sanctuary. And Pat was very accommodating. Charlie's first question to him was, could we leave Jesus out of the service? And he said, sure, fine, we're used. And then Charlie's second question was, could we leave God out of the service? So I was clearly marrying the right man. So we had our Jesusless, godless outdoor wedding. We bought a house here in Milton, had our 2 wonderful sons, and were really busy with our professional lives, parenting, friends, and we were happy and everything was going well. And then 10 years after we were married, Charlie became ill. And he died a year later. Sorry, I thought I could get through this without crying, but anyway. Friends here in this church suggested we have a memorial service here. So I met with Reverend Laurie Bellew to plan this service. Much of that time is really a blur now, but I remember that day vividly. The church was filled with family and friends and colleagues, many who gave loving tributes to Charlie. And I was sitting in the service with our 2 young boys, and somehow throughout that service, I began to have a glimmer of hope that I was going to be able to carry on. Over the next months and years, I gradually started coming to this church. In the beginning, I sat in the back pew, thinking a lot and crying a lot. It's a very good church for that. I know I'm not alone. There's a lot to cry about in this life and a lot to think about. It's also, though, a great church for singing, and I eventually started singing again and joined the choir. And then I started making more new friends. It's also a great church for making new friends. You are wonderful people in this church. And I then realized that this was the community where, after all these years of searching, I could finally feel at home. You are the blessed community I was longing to find. So for the first time in my life, I joined a church, and it felt wonderful. And then there were all the committees to join, and the small group ministries, and beginning to get a sense of how a church actually works, and making a pledge. And one Sunday morning, at the end of a service, Russ Tremaine stood up, rather, I think, ad hoc, I don't know, just it seemed out of nowhere, and he spoke eloquently about the importance of remembering the church in your estate, and I was inspired. So I spoke with my now grown sons, who know how important this church has become to me, called our lawyer, and added First Parish as a beneficiary in my will. We all know we're going to die, but most of us don't like to dwell on that. I ended up at this church because of a death, and I hope someday there will be a memorial service here for me. Like many of those faithful members who have gone before, I will be leaving a legacy to help ensure that this church is here in the future for others who, like me, can find a home. So now I'm going to pass the baton to Russ, please, and hope that he inspires you as he inspired me.
I was raised in a mild Methodist household where the other members of the family in the town were Episcopalian. From that, as a child, I learned that what religion you were depends on what church you went to on Sundays. My wife's family, on the other hand, were fundamentalists. In one of their services, my cousin-in-law stood up and spoke in tongues for 20 minutes. That sent us fleeing here. The values of tolerance, acceptance, and respect for others are what drew them and us together. When I first joined the First Parish, seems like 300 years ago today, in 1976, it was a place where we wanted to send our kids so they would learn the values that we had, that we cherished. The physical plant at that time was pretty much the same, and the philosophies and the values were the same as we have today. But the culture of the congregation was somewhat different in that the congregation was pretty much old Yankee with names like Stebbins, Forbes, and S.S. Peirce. The values that drew them together of acceptance and tolerance and respect for others are what drew them and us together. We respect and welcome and cherish those who share our values and we enjoy their participation. Especially from different perspectives, whether they are young or old, Jewish or Hindi, Lebanese or skinny, or straight or gay, realizing that we inside are deep down inside all Homo sapiens. We even tolerate, I hope, people who wear outrageous jackets. Membership in this church is a commitment not only to our values, but to the dedication of our predecessors who sought to ensure those values. To that end, they not only supported their annual budgets, but more importantly, they left bequests in their wills to the church. Those bequests have become what we enjoy as our endowment. That endowment, the income from that endowment, pays more toward our annual budgets than all of our annual pledges do. Another way of saying that is, perhaps, our long-dead predecessors pay more for today's service than we do. Think about that. The income from that endowment pays more toward our operating budget annually than all of our annual pledges do. So, I forgot what I was going to say. Here it is. So, you know how important the endowment is. So how many of you expect to be around 100 years from today? How many of you expect to... Okay. Good, I want to talk to you later about that. see if... how many of you expect to be around 1 year from today? I see a lot of hands. How many of you can guarantee that you will be around 1 year from today? So you see how fragile and unpredictable life on this planet can be. So what that means is that you should have a will to ensure that the assets that you do have go to those family members and loved ones and causes you believe in. So for those of you who do not have a will, I stand up on my tallest puritanical soapbox and say, "For shame, for shame!" For those who do, I say, bring it up to date, etc. So, I hope that you create the will to make a will which will ensure that your assets go to the causes and loved ones that you care about. So next time you come through those doors, you will be able to say you have a will or have been working on one.